All right. Welcome to another week where we are still here. I'm very proud, very happy to have another week where you guys come and you spend your time listening to us. That is a fantastic feeling to have, that people out there stop us at parties, stop us out in the streets, and they say that they are loving our podcast. I really love it. Politically correcting podcast. Make sure you take a moment, smash that like button, please, and hit the little bell. Hit that bell because people are not getting the alert saying, if you're on YouTube, hit that little bell so you get the alert stating that we're going live. And make sure you share as many times as you can so that people get to see Lavelle's beautiful face and Dan from the street's beautiful beard.
We're here.
Right? All right. Well, before we start anything, obviously we must understand that we are here to have a conversation with friends over a drink. So get your drinks out. Cheers to everybody. And let's get this party started.
I got mine for the chief. Don't worry. I got you. I got double over here for this one.
So I'm not sure if I want to start off real quick about Biden's tax plan, the tax bill, the 2,500 page tax bill. Now, what we're seeing is the Democratic socialists out there pretty much taking over the Democratic Party, and they're demonizing the rich. Listen, Bill Gates is not rich because you are poor. The issue should not be how to make him poorer, but how to make you richer. Okay, how to make those who are poor, how to make you richer, how to increase your level so that you can believe that one day you can be just like Mr. Bill Gates. Not in the way where you want to, stick needles in people's arms all across the world and kill people. Not that kind of way. I'm not saying that's what he's doing. I'm just saying. But the biggest difference maker, and people need to understand this, and this is from me. You guys let me know if you agree with this. It's up to you. But the biggest difference maker that I have seen, and I know from doing my own research, especially in the city of Rochester, the biggest difference maker you can have is with having a two-parent household, meaning that having a single mom, while it's a great thing to be a single mom who can take care of her children, it is the number one greatest indicator of generational poverty. By far. I had a single mother, okay? And I'm telling you, it's not great growing up in poverty. Now, it wasn't very long before my parents made the right decisions and got us into an area that we weren't surrounded by people who would, I wouldn't say cause us to grow up on the streets, but having a child out of wedlock, having a child when you are not ready, having a child when you are not graduated from high school is the number one way to grow up poor, to have your children grow up poor, to not set your family up for success. And I know that most of you out there want to give your children a better life than what you had. So I implore you that in order to do that, what I would recommend, number one, finish school. Number two, only procreate with a person that you believe they're going to stay in that child's life forever, because it's a difference maker in this world when we have two parents who are able to make a living, or one parent make a living while one parent raises his children, be able to pay all your bills, live in a good household, live in a good neighborhood because you have two incomes maybe. It's a whole different world when you have two parents raising you. And I can tell you from my existence that it was the difference maker in my life. That's my intro there. What do you guys think? Do you agree?
That.
So you're not saying though that if somebody is raised in a single family home or single parent, that they're destined to become
no, but by the numbers
from the streets, as you say.
By the numbers, if you are raised in a single parent home in the city of Rochester, you are definitely most likely going to grow up in poverty.
Well, it's almost self-evident, right? Like you got two sets of eyes versus one set of eyes,
right?
Two incomes versus one. Like,
right.
If this is a revelation, man, I'm reading the wrong book.
Well, people don't want to hear it though. I think that's the problem, is that a lot of people in our city don't want to hear it.
You know what? you can have a lot of different reasons. You can add a lot of different reasons as to why this happens. You can start with the culture, right? A lot of music that's perpetuated throughout the culture it doesn't promote that type of living and lifestyle, right? Saying that that's what we should be doing, right? You can start right there, and then you just go off from there. What happens after the culture perpetuates the attitudes and all those things from everybody else? It goes into the actions out in the streets, right?
Ooh, I brought that up on WXXI with Evan Dawson, and you couldn't believe the calls that I got, the messages that I got afterwards when I said, if you want to create a better life for yourself, take the negative out of your brain, because you're going to have, if you constantly hear that you can only be a drug dealer, basketball player, sports player, and you can only treat women like a certain kind of way, or if you are a woman, that you can only use your body to produce an income, you're going to go down that road of destruction.
I wish I'd have heard that.
Oh man! Oh, Evan Dawson didn't like that, and so I'm gonna use that to introduce our guest here.
I'm waiting because I'm sitting here like I know this man to my left, right?
Right.
And everything that he's been able to experience within the community and just see it from his eyes, and to have the position to be police chief of this very city is a daunting task, dealing with the attitudes and the
ridiculousness.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna. I'm just waiting to hear. The.
So I'm going to speak from my perspective, and
Chief Shepherd here, Jim Shepherd. For anyone out there who didn't grow up listening to this man right here, you're either too young or you're just blinded to what this man brought to our city. So, Chief Shepherd, thank you very much.
Man. This
for
is
being
wisdom
with us.
right here.
So number one, I think you're correct in terms of, if you look at the data, it shows that single parent homes tend to have issues relative to how their kids grow up. But I also think poverty doesn't make you be negative. I grew up in a household, my parents had 12 babies. They were insane. I can't believe
You're taking away one of my questions here. How in the hell was your life growing
up?
Wisdom
right here. This is wisdom right here.
Continue.
They had 12 babies, but what made us successful, and I'm proud to say that, out of 12 babies, they're all successful. They're still alive. They all have, not gone down the wrong path. It's based on the values that you instill in your kids and the culture you bring them up in. So I didn't come up in a culture that said it's all right to steal, or it's all right to, shoot somebody, or it's all right to deal drugs. I grew up in a culture where my father said, listen, you get in trouble, the police better not bring you home, because I'm going to kill you. So I grew
that
up.
Fear of God there, the fear of your dad.
Thing, realizing that, I didn't have to fear the police. I didn't have to fear school. I had to fear what was at home. And that determined how I chose to grow up. But the culture piece, I think that's what is devastating to our communities, where you have people that believe, based on, I think I heard somebody mention music or movies, those types of things, where people think that that's how they have to prove themselves. And so they grow up in a culture where, yes, violence is acceptable. And if you don't use violence, you're a punk.
Right.
And therefore you're going to get punked even more. So you end up going down that path.
And Chief, but the first thing that stood out to me was, like you said, your father told you he was going to kill you, not whoop your ass. He was going to kill you. He put the fear of God. It was God, and then that daddy figure that was standing there next to you to whoop you behind. And we can talk all we want, but the data doesn't lie. If you look at the numbers of homicides in this city, the overwhelming number is Black men in the median age of 27. Across year after year, the median is around 27, 26. So you got men before they're even reaching their prime that probably already have kids, are gone before their kids is even in double-digit years themselves.
I think I heard maybe in the late 90s, and it was Chief Duffy at the time, who said, probably 90% of the people that we arrest are people who, single parent homes, don't graduate from high school. And if you don't lay down the foundation to be successful, you're not likely to be successful. Not saying you can't be, but the likelihood of it decreases based on some of those factors.
Well, absolutely. And I think we made an inference here that you grew up with God in your life. Now, talk to me about that. Did you grow up with God in your life? Was there religion? Did you go to church? Was that in your life at all? Or did you just have strict parents who would straight up pull out the belt?
So my parents, the reason they had them 12 babies, because somewhere point they decided to go from being Baptist to being Catholics. And as a result of that, I grew up, I spent the first 6 years in Catholic schools. And Catholicism really is based on fear.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I grew up in a fearful environment of, God knows what you're thinking, right?
All the
If
time.
you think bad thoughts, he knows. So, I mean,
Mm.
you were always in that place of, say, you went to confession. You were like, I can't even lie here because he already knows I did it.
Right,
and he
right.
even knows I was thinking
Right.
about doing it. So fear was always part of that. And religion,
Right.
I still, I'm a man of faith. I'm not a man that goes to church every Sunday, but my faith is internal. Is I believe in God. I believe in treating my fellow man the way I want to be treated. I believe in the 10 Commandments. I'm not going to take my faith and try to throw it on somebody else, but I will demonstrate my faith, and you can see it, and therefore you can know that I have it. And if you want to emulate it, that's up to you.
Can I ask you a question, Chief?
Anytime.
Within, it's kind of easy for me to kind of bring this up because it seems like our Black community is always at the top of a discussion. So let me ask you this: as far as when we say we need to pretty much reestablish that foundation with faith, do you think that's more of a responsibility on our churches to probably find a way to make or reestablish that connection to our youth? Is there more? Who should kind of be expected to do more? Is it more the parents? Is it more of the churches? Whose
responsibility does that lie on?
Yeah.
Again, I think it starts in the home. And I mean, when you're young, generally that's where you spend the majority of your time interacting with your family, your parents, your extended family, grandparents, whatever. That's where it's instilled. I think the churches, a lot of pressure is put on churches. You need to do that. But if you really look at churches, the people they impact are the people they impact. They don't impact the people that don't go to church. They don't impact the hoodlums. So to say that they need to, and I think they try hard to do outreach, but to say that's their burden, I think that's inappropriate.
Well, it's funny because I read a Bible verse last week. It was during one of my dog walk talks. So I walk around with my dog and I think about things, usually pertaining to religion. And one of the things that was last week, it was a Bible verse that says a parent that doesn't discipline their child hates their child, hates them. Now, in the Bible, hate doesn't really mean hate. It means they love them less. But that was huge for me. Like my parents, I would say whoop my ass, but not in like, I was not calling the police, right? And nowadays you can't get a spanking without someone saying they're going to call the cops.
God forbid you say the word accountability. Like, can somebody please just be okay with being accountable?
Well, we outsourced that to the public school system a long time ago.
Oh,
well, I do think that, and I'm probably going to be, committing suicide by saying this. I do believe that.
That's why we asked
you know what show
are you sure you want to be on this show?
but I do think that parents have a responsibility to discipline their children.
Mm-hmm.
And and I being in policing, I've seen those instances where they've gone overboard.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that is required. Because, and you can tell the kids that have discipline in their life. I use the term discipline. So I'm not going to say
absolutely.
Beat
discipline is different.
Discipline is required.
Right.
And if there is no discipline, then the children grow up without accepting anything, and there is no authority. And that's what we're seeing now, is that we're seeing these young kids come up, say probably around 8, 9, 10 years old, who do not accept authority. You could be in a uniform, you could be in a classroom. They do not accept authority. And that is leading us down this path of where we're seeing all this violence and all this crime going on.
You know what I think about? Like, and I try and look at every single side, and I don't want to, sometimes I may come off as that I'm not empathetic to people who are in, adverse situations when they're raising their kid. Right. So I understand that the single mom who has that 14-year-old boy who he's so strong, an ass whooping won't get to his head. So he's so far gone that mother has no choice. So kind of going back to what happened, was it last year where the little 8-year-old, where they made the terrible decision to pepper spray the child in the back seat. Now, in the back of my mind, I'm saying to myself, why doesn't somebody pop this little kid in the back of their head and tell her ass, no, you are going to sit your ass down and
respect your elders.
Right. But where was the father? Right. It goes back to this. Where was the daddy? Where was the father? And if they're either dying or going to jail, okay, somewhere, somehow, some level of accountability has to be, understood by someone.
But I'll say this too. I think there's some single parents, mothers, who have raised some very good children.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
And you mentioned, you got that 14-year-old and he looks like a linebacker or something.
Right.
But he
these
started
kids on that Genesee River water, man.
You got to get him early.
But he started off as a baby. And it's no
Right.
different than having a pit bull. If you got a pit bull as a puppy and you raise him right, he's scared of you when he's full grown. And he's going to obey you because he remembers that when he was 8 months old, you had to spank his butt. And the same thing is for children. When you raise them with the discipline, they can be 18 years old. They can be 225 pounds. Their brain still remembers.
They remember that. No, absolutely. And you see what's going on in our city streets right now. I mean, it's overtly ridiculous how these kids have gotten to the point where they don't care about discipline. They don't care about any elders. They don't care about police.
What's the culture?
If you were police chief today, how would you handle the ATV issue? Let's just go with that. The ATV dirt bike issue.
I think when you talk about issues, and this is a quality of life issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you have to set the tone. And I think for years we set the tone that it was not going to be tolerated. We set the tone that say as soon as the April warm up occurred, you did the enforcement activity that curtailed it. There was a decision made probably about 8-9 years ago where they said, we're not going to enforce that. And what it did was it made it worse, because I've never in my career have I seen 50 to 100 scooters riding down Lake Avenue. I never experienced that. So I think once it gets out of control, it's like anything else. It's hard to put it back in the box. And so that's where the problem lies, is that when you lose control, it's very hard to gain control. And you just can't say, okay, we're going to enforce our way into it, because if it's not accepted, you can't make it happen. But just like everything else we've been talking about, you got to nip things in the bud before it gets to where you can't deal with it.
Right. And it kind of gotten to that point at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of going back into when you were police chief, if you were chief today, you kind of like, how they say some of the old coaches in the NFL couldn't coach today, right? Because the kids you really couldn't today, because you have so many different elements out there. I was looking back when you had the cool down period, right? And you implemented it. And I think a lot of issues within just our inner cities comes with communication, because you can have an argument that the media kind of portrayed that movement as if it was, something more than it was. So you have outside groups like, I'm not don't want to get too deep
Call them out.
But, you have groups like ACLU and NYCLU. I'm just reading articles where they're coming at you every year for any type of police action that you implemented. They always labeled it as civil liberty infringement. But when you look further into ACLU, well, these people, they support defund the police. They support, more rights for the criminal, more so than the system itself. They're more about breaking down the system instead of supporting law enforcement and working together so that we keep the right people in prison and keep the wrong, the people who are innocent out of prison. That's the way the system's supposed to work.
Well, let me ask the actual question there, because I'm not quite sure there was a question there.
Well, I was getting to the question, and you know what it is, because you get a couple sips and you kind of forget the question. So what I was alluding to, though, as far as with groups like that are starting off to try and defund the police, what do you like? How are you able to still navigate the Constitution within what you knew you were doing during that time versus like today? How would you be able to navigate that today?
I think the most important thing you can do is articulate the why. Why are you doing what you're doing? So some people look at it like, oh, you're trying to suppress people. It's not about suppressing people. Really, what it is about, number one, saving lives. So like if you look at right now, there's a lot of homicides going on. The police don't do what they do because we're the authoritarians or we're the bullies or we think we're all bad. They're doing what they do because they want to save lives. If that's your motivation, then a lot of the things that you do are acceptable. A lot of the anti-police movements aren't grounded in what's best for the community, because the majority of the people want to be quality of life in their neighborhoods. They don't want to see the violence that's going on around them. They want the police to do their jobs. Now, there's going to be times where somebody says that policeman did something wrong, and therefore that is what all the policemen are. But that's not reality. And you can't say that about any culture or any race or anything. But the fact of the matter is why are you doing what you do? And I knew for me for 32 years, trying to save lives, period. That was at the top priorities. So if I did something about guys on scooters, it wasn't because I hate scooters, because I know when they drive around all crazy, somebody dies. Why am I stopping guys who I think might carry guns? Because I know they might use that gun. Those are the things that motivate, and that's what you have to articulate. And the majority of the people that you don't hear from, the silent majority, are saying, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, I just kind of going back, just looking back at it, I was like reading the articles, like they were making it seem as though it was geared toward everybody. Everybody's getting pulled over. They tied you into Giuliani stop and frisk. So I just wanted to be fair to, to you, and also just overall the conversation of today. It's really hard to police and do your job when you lock someone up and then the next minute they're out on the streets.
Well, it was a double front onslaught against you, and it was number one when you were running for mayor. It was I do love Rachel Barnhart, but she did claim that you supported discriminatory policing policies, and then the radio station WDKX pulled it up as well, and they just ran with it. I want to give you the opportunity here to speak up and defend yourself here and let people know what do they have any kind of is there anything there that it can stick, or are you saying it's complete baloney?
Like I said from the get-go, as I look back on those 32 years, I have no regrets in terms of how I policed or how I directed people to police because of what motivated my actions. Like I said, I focused saving lives. And if you think of it from that perspective, the rest of that is just BS and it's politics. I mean, I accept it as being part of the political game that, okay, you're going to say whatever you can to gain a vote. But the reality is it's about saving those lives. And what we've seen, and I'm going to say particularly over the last 2 years, saving lives is irrelevant.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter. Like the same people who talk about policing practices aren't saying anything about the current violence. You haven't heard from certain mouths in probably 8 or 9 months.
Preach.
They have not said a word about what's going on in this city. And if the city was really concerned about Black Lives Matter, I said this once on Evan Dawson. He asked me, what do I think about Black Lives Matter? I said, show me.
Yeah, that was like that was like a Morgan Freeman on CNN when they asked him about rape. Doesn't exist. Stop talking about it. Like the argument for Black Lives Matter is so jacked up. It's like you can honestly tell it's not coming from an authentic grassroots location. It definitely seems like it's bottled up and it changes every 5 minutes. If you ask me, when you look at the numbers, and it's not even 2022 yet, and we have more homicides than we had last year, which was 40, I think 42.
53.
Last year was high.
53.
50. Oh, shoot. I'm shorting the number. So we're ahead of that pace, and it's we got a couple more months.
3 more months left.
So what has to happen for people to realize like life actually does matter, period. And we're trying to pinpoint the reason we're trying to point the finger at one demographic in an unfair manner, and it does not in one iota move the conversation on where it needs to go. Right. And I'm sad. It's sad to say that, and it's unfair, but the only place that is having this conversation is on the right side, is on a conservative side, and that side has been so vilified so much to where so many African Americans on the left won't even touch the conversation. They don't even want to talk about your own people dying in your community. It makes zero sense to me as a Black individual myself.
But I do think that as you saw the violence increase over the last year, they may not have spoke in terms of, going to the media, but you notice there was a change in people saying something's got to be done. Something's got to be done, because this year you finally start to see some people saying you got to do something about the violence. And I'll say this about the violence too, and this is an indictment on certain places. Crime didn't matter till it went outside the city. It didn't matter till it went outside the city. And I'll give you the perfect example is carjackings. There was a series of carjackings been going on in the city for months.
Right.
It wasn't even in the media. It didn't even matter.
They didn't touch it.
All of a sudden it popped up in Gates. It popped up in Webster and hit a little bit in Irondequoit. And all of a sudden everybody wanted to speak out on, hey, we got to do something about the carjackings. We got to do something about the violence. And that's another problem that the city has to deal with, and particularly what the media and how it handles it. Is the fact is that certain things happen in the city, and if it's not going to move likes on a social media page, they just ignore it, and because they ignore it, it actually perpetuates it even more, because people realize, don't nobody care. I can shoot somebody, nobody cares. I can kill somebody, nobody cares. But if I'm going to do a carjack, and I better not do it out in the suburbs, and I better not do it to somebody white.
Yeah, my own personal experience with the media, 8, 10, 13, and I have no shame in, talking about my own personal experience with, losing a family member to, violence. People don't understand that for the families through these situations, it's very traumatic, and the media is very much involved, but not in a helpful way. They reach out, they get a story, to get information on any angle they can, and then they run with it. And they don't know that sometimes they actually do have influence on what happens within, overall with the case.
Sometimes,
a lot of times. I'm trying to be as neutral as possible, and but
why?
Right. This is politically correcting. We are supposed to correct
the
wrong that's going on in this world.
There, within my two instances, the information that the media put out was totally inaccurate, for when my first brother was killed. And then when my second brother was killed, they were so thirsty for a story. They tapped into sensitive information where it was used against my brother within the court case. So the media definitely has a huge part to play as well. There's enough fingers to go around, but when you talk about the actual nucleus or the heart of the problem, it definitely starts within the individuals themselves, the community itself. But the media has to understand their role within this. They have to. Did you not notice? I noticed it from the outside looking in when you were running for mayor, how you were treated by certain media outlets. How you were not brought up by certain media outlets, how they didn't give you the opportunity to speak. And then when it was directed to you, about you, it was only like it was contorted to just that one topic, which was, what Rachel Barnhart had brought up. It was all just about that. Did you see that in the middle of it? Because I saw from the outside. I think that most common sense people saw what was happening, but that was at a point where we didn't have a President Trump coming out saying the media is biased and there's fake media. Did you see it? Did you feel it? Or did you only notice it after?
I think,
or was it not there?
Let me go back to even before that. When I was in chief, I really didn't pay attention to the media in that regard of saying like, oh, woe is me. I didn't care. I knew what I was focused on. And I knew why I was in the position I was in. When I chose to run for mayor, I did note the fact that they weren't my friend. They weren't my friend. And I think that Rachel had, based on her relationships of being from the media, she had an advantage in that regard. And then the mayor had an advantage just from being the mayor. And it seemed like the fight was always to grab attention. You want to speak on something, you do a press event, maybe they don't show up, or maybe one or two show up. And then, there's going to be a groundbreaking. You're going to dig a hole in the ground that's not going to have a building on it for about 8 years, but everybody's there to promote that event. So as I went through that campaign, I realized it, and it's, you fight against it. You hope to, get that one edge that where they're going to listen to you, but it was a battle throughout.
I find Rachel funny. I find her funny. I'm just being honest. Like, all right, we look at
funny like haha, or funny like Joe Pesci.
Well, funny in a way to where like you got to be real serious about yourself. Like this city it's a hard city, man. We're a tough city, yo. We're real tough, and the crime
We're
is
a bunch of jerks.
the crime is no
Rochesterians are
joke.
jerks. I love Rochester, but
Right, the crime is no joke, man. And I don't see her being like. And say what you want about Lovely, right? But you gotta respect the attitude. Like, well, I'm just gonna fly out the handle, say whatever I want to say, forget it, right? Boom. Like, I'm from the hood, I'm from the streets, right? I'm about that action, I'm about that life. Rachel, I think when it could get down to it, I think she just probably will buckle and just probably apologize. And like, I don't see her being tough enough for this city, man. Like, you gotta be real. You gotta be one tough person to really, guide the city. And I mean, they already said Malik done one, so I don't even want to start there.
You better leave Malik alone.
I don't even want to start there.
Yet.
I don't know. They pretty much gave him the mayor's seat. Every time they talk about it in the media, the presumptive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's nobody else running against
nobody
him.
Wants to. Nobody wants. I bet for you. I want to ask this question for you.
Even like, already know.
Do you think you should have waited? Oh, dang it! You should have just waited. You like, dang! If I only would have waited for BLM to come in and mess things up for Lovely.
BLM didn't mess things up for Lovely. Lovely messing.
No, wait. That's right. I don't want to give her an out.
No, give her an out. Or give BLM an in.
Politics. Right. A lot of times, politics is timing. I mean, it really is. I don't care what race it is, whether it's local or national, it's the timing. And I think when we talk about politicians, and I'm going to tell you right now, one of my failings is I'm not one. And because to be a real good one, you got to be willing to say what people want to hear. And I never was good at telling people what they wanted to hear. I was always going to speak from the heart and say what I felt. But you'll find that for a lot of politicians, they're looking for that niche. Where can I build a base? So you brought up Rachel. Rachel found her base being in those people who are disenfranchised.
South Wedge.
And yes. and touching those minorities who felt that they had been wrong.
Wait, how many minorities? Two?
But they're part of her base.
Yeah.
And that's who she caters to. Now other people may cater to a different base. So be it. That's politics. But I think to be successful in this city, you can't necessarily think about your base or your next election. You got to think about your purpose. And if your purpose is making the city better, if your purpose is making the city safe, making it desirable for business to come and grow it, you can be successful. But if you focus on, I got to get reelected, I got to focus on my base, it'll take you off your path.
Well, don't you need to get reelected though to be successful?
Well, it depends how you take it. Because I don't take it as I would be successful only if I was reelected.
No, but he's saying that if you actually do the work, you follow your heart, you do it, that's when you're succul.
Yeah, you got to be elected first time.
I don't think you get there if you do that. I think we've seen it.
Seen what? What have you seen?
I think we've seen that they're focused on just getting reelected. I think that's all it is.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's the fault.
Right.
If that's what you focus on, that can be the fault. If you focus on why are you running? What is your purpose? What are you trying to achieve for the people you want to serve?
I think your heart's too pure.
I think
your integrity is too clean.
That's why I don't like to keep throwing shots at my man Malik. But at the end of the day, you look at the path from school. Well, I mean before school board, from school board all the way up to now, like a politician that's looking for the next best opportunity, right? But now you gotta say something. I haven't heard not one plan other than having spies or messengers to try and report crime when you see it. But that's not anything that I think can move the needle. And just kind of bringing up Rachel, it was funny. I'm looking at her when she's throwing shots at you. She's like, "Oh, he's only bringing up nothing that's new." Well, what are you talking about? Like, who? I can only imagine Rachel going down to Flint Street Rec Center right now and holding, a conference or something and say she's going to help the people how are you going to relate to them over there in Flint? I worked over there before. Those kids, you got 10-year-olds like come up to you and call you a BITCH real quick and won't flinch. I don't think she's ready for that. Well, I don't think so.
And I got to give credit where credit's due. Malik does have an event coming up. It's an online event where he will be talking about his game plan.
Oh, really?
How to address the issues.
I can't wait.
If you're not aware of this stuff, I gotta say, our city is not very good at spreading the word on some of these things when it comes to the actual good things that are happening. But
that's true.
I gotta speak on what you guys were just discussing as well, the banter here about how a lot of politicians only care about getting reelected. And you see that with like Biden, who won for the past 49 freaking years.
Yo,
like, how are you a politician?
How can you be a blatant racist
years?
and still get elected?
How do you say the things that he said and you still get black people to vote for you?
I think where Chief's going with it,
Not where I was going with it.
You shouldn't be a career politician. You should be something.
Well, only if you're good though, and if you represent your people. That's the thing though. If you truly represent your people, and like you said, what's your motive? What's your integrity behind it? What is your why? My thing is, I had a little sticker at one of my past jobs, and I've carried it with me everywhere, and it's in my heart now. It's called purity of intent. What is your intent? And what you say and what you do, those are great, but it needs to align with your intent, or else people are going to call you out and they're going to see that you're being fake, you're being phony. And when people invite me to certain things, I've been invited to like black churches, and I'm like, look, to be honest, that's not me. Like,
they
I
told
can't
you to bring
do
the
that.
rice and beans though.
They wanted to put hands on me.
That rice and beans.
They wanted to put hands on me, and I was like, look, honestly, I love it. I appreciate that. But don't be racist. Look, I am the minority in this room.
Yes, you
no
are.
one can see
I
it.
do not want you
I
to
got
forget
3
that.
white boys here.
I want you to remember. You are strength in numbers. Do not talk slick today, boy.
Yeah.
We will band together.
Oh no, I'm gonna talk my slickness. But oh man, my nose care went. But actually, it's funny because you said you were among kids, 12 kids.
12 kids.
12 kids. But you were the middle one, weren't you?
Number 6.
Ooh, you get into every angle.
I mean, you know what? And let me say this about being number 6.
Does it mean don't you feel like you have to do something about that? Or go ahead.
What am I gonna do about it? Hey,
well, do they even pronounce you by your name? Do they just call you number 6?
Number 6. You, the short one.
The short.
And I was a short one.
But, man,
but
you
anyway,
had to fight for everything.
What I realized later in life, that by being that middle child, that made me the mediator. That made me the peacemaker. Right. And I didn't really realize I had that juice until you're a grown man and your relatives are calling you because this brother's mad at that one, this sister's mad at that one, or we're going to have an event, we got to get everybody there, and they're telling me to coordinate and get people together.
That's really good insight.
Then you start to see it. And then in this job, not this job, but as a policeman, a lot of it is that too. You go into a hostile situation, a volatile situation, the domestic event, being able to calm people down, separate people, bring them down so they can discuss the issue from a non-emotional place as opposed to all jacked up and wanting to hurt each other. And so I'm happy to have been that middle child.
Yo, I want to ask you this question. I was, Jose told us to do some research. I already did my research on this. So I was like, so one of the positions you had within the law enforcement, you were on narcotics. So let me ask you, so there's been a lot of movies that came out, that kind of highlighted, folks within the narcotics division. You have Training Day, and then you have the other one, New Jack City. Would you say you were more Denzel Washington, Training Day, narcotics official, or more Ice-T? You want to be undercover, you want to bust the bad guy, you want to get close to Nino Brown and take him down. I hope I'm not. Did I just kind of close this conversation?
What about Martin Lawrence and Bad Boys?
Oh, nah. We leave them out on this one. They don't know. Ain't no Mike Lowry. I don't know if he was
Lowry.
Mike Lowry
was Will Smith.
But did those movies kind of like if you watched them, you're like, that's kind of far fetched, or was Denzel like, yeah, I could see that motherfucker right there, really. He's spitting right now.
This is why they use Hollywood.
No, for me, again, when I went to narcotics, it was right after the civil rights narcotics investigations that went on. And certain people were chosen to go to narcotics based on their integrity. So when I went to narcotics, it wasn't about, being a cowboy or being, hey, look at me, I'm in plain clothes. It was about going out there and doing the job. And that experience in narcotics also affected me in terms of how I policed as chief, because I didn't really care about drugs. What I care about was, how can I use a drug arrest to get this violent individual off these streets? So, and that was more the driver, not so much about, oh, look, we seized a pound of weed or we got a kilo of cocaine. It was about using drug enforcement to address those people that those communities were afraid to say, yes, I saw Johnny Smith shoot Pookie. Nope, I ain't saying nothing because there may be something that comes back to me and my family.
Yeah.
Well, we can't get nobody to tell us they saw them do that violent act, but we can use those drug laws to remove that person from the street.
Tactics.
Well, do you see that the Democratic Socialists nowadays they don't like that. They don't like the fact that you are pulling people over knowing that there is an illegal gun in that guy's, back pocket there. They've came out and said they don't want RPD pulling people over for headlight issues, missing a tail light, missing their tags. They've said it. They don't want you pulling them over for these various issues. And the police chief came out and said, we're not pulling them over for that. We're pulling them over because we know there's something else in that vehicle.
And that's a lot of times when you do traffic enforcement. When I pull you over, you may say, you're just pulling me over because I'm black or I'm driving a nice car or for whatever reason. You don't know what I know about you.
Right.
And I'm not going to tell you what I know about you when I pull you over because then you may change what you're doing. So I may pull you over because of the simple fact that, look, taillight's out. I'm going to walk up to that car. I'm going to have that conversation. I may get lucky and see, oh, look, contraband right in plain sight. Take advantage of that and make that arrest. But police should be able to do police work. And if you don't let them do police work, what they become is report writers. And report writers don't prevent crime. And if you don't prevent crime, you have a very violent environment.
Sounds like we're getting trained today. Right. How many times did you hear probably yo, you just trying to arrest a black man, huh? You just gonna do that to another black man?
Or calling you a coon or calling you
how many
Uncle
times
Tom?
was the race car thrown at you for just doing your job?
I don't think I'm sure I probably got it at some point. But the one thing that I also brought to the table was I was always respectful. I was always going to be respectful. And I don't care. You could have killed your grandmother. I'm going to speak to you in a manner that is respectful. And when the time comes and the opportunity comes, I'm going to take you to jail.
Is that missing in RPD these days then? Do you think? Or, I mean, how involved? I don't know how involved you are in it, but looking from the inside from the outside at the very least, do you think that there is some things, because that they're pushing for reimagining police, and we're talking about how RPD handles arrests and when they should handle it in a way where they're more laissez-faire, and instead of I'm gonna take your ass out. Well, do you see a difference now in the policing where there could be a turn to where we are just going to have to be laissez-faire, or do you think that maybe they need to be a little more strict?
Number one, I think that, and I was in the system I was raised in, how you got arrested was up to you, not up to me. It was up to you. And that is the thing that people aren't taking in consideration. Sometimes there's force used, not because a policeman wants to use force. It's because you decide you're not going to go to jail. And I'm going to use the level of force that is appropriate to affect that arrest. And there's factors. Here's another thing. People don't take in consideration the factors, but here's some things that we train people. One, I'm 5'6". I'm 65 years old. If I'm going to arrest him and he looks like he's all jacked up,
Dan from the streets is
every
jacked
single
up.
time.
He's all jacked up. Right. I'm going to make that assessment. I'm going to make that assessment when I'm engaging you.
I'll go quiet.
And I don't know if you noticed, but
I'm gonna take this big white dude down, man.
So, like when I shook your hand, and I grabbed your elbow.
He sized you up.
Why'd I do that?
I knew it.
I was checking him out.
Yeah, there you go.
So when the time comes, I know that's a factor. I'm 65. He's 30 years old. He's in better shape than me. Whatever it is.
That's why he's police.
Those are
right.
Those are going to be factors when I make that arrest.
Right.
And it's going to be factors in the force that I use if you decide that I'm not going to arrest you.
Well, among many things, you're talking about context, which the media doesn't.
Never give, man.
They'll
Never
erase the
give.
context.
Yeah.
Like we had a gentleman who was out on bail who they had a warrant for, or it wasn't a warrant, it was a reason for them to arrest him, whatever. Caught him on video selling drugs. They went up to him and said, hey, he's over there, blah, blah, blah. Just go grab him because he needs to go in anyways. They go talk to him. They have him stand up. Gun was right there. Something like that. They're like, oh, you need to come. But they start wrestling around. The guy runs from him, from the police. They run after, they tackle him. The brother comes out from the side of the house. Everyone from the street comes out with their cell phones. Everyone is like this. Aren't you happy you never had to deal with that? Like, there weren't really cell phones when you were RPD chief, was there? Like, with this all the time?
It all started under my watch.
With
Emily Good. With Emily Good. When Emily Good, they were making a traffic stop and she came out with her cell phone. And
I remember
that was the big thing. And at that time, and this, I believe it was like 2012, 2011.
NYCLU came in.
And that's when we told people, listen, one, they got a right to videotape. And two, act accordingly. Do your job the way you're trained, and you don't have any problems. And cops make thousands of arrests a year. You hear about 3 of them. You know what I mean?
Right,
you hear about
right.
one where force was used, and whether it was appropriate or not. That becomes the story. Cops are making arrests all day, every day. And I'm going to say 99% of the time when a police officer makes an arrest, there is no force used. And then there's those times when
you're kind of force because other people see someone getting tackled as force.
Well, no, I mean, not even that. I mean,
okay.
To me, the best arrest is, listen, sir, could you stand up?
Right. Yeah.
Turn around, put your hands behind your back, click, click, let's go. That's an arrest. That's nice. But I didn't determine that. He determined it by following what I asked him to do.
Yeah.
And another thing you touched on was police reform. And let me say this too about I can support police reform. It's the delivery of the message. And what I mean is, if I were to say to you, you know what's wrong with you? Right there, your body.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
I was about to grab your elbow.
You don't want to hear what I got to say.
Yeah.
Right.
Where with a lot of the police reform issues, if they were put on the table in a way where it was talked about, say, how can we do things better? How can we change things to be better? Cops would love it. But the way it's coming out right now is always about what's wrong with you.
Yep.
And because you're putting it in a way, what's wrong with you, people resist. They put the wall up. You want to knock the wall down? Sit down with some cops and say, hey, how can we make your job better? They say, we shouldn't be handling mental health calls. We shouldn't be handling this.
Quality of life.
If they kind 911, send somebody else.
Right.
And we've been talking that for 20 years, 25 years of how to improve policing internally by doing certain things.
And that's where, I kind of keep going back to the media and their involvement. The first initial ounce of information that the public gets, it comes from the media. So if you have these situations like the Daniel Prude situation, and the media is the first thing they do is just put images out to where context is never even received, from the public to where they can consciously make a decision on whether or not something is in fact egregious or something isn't. Like, I think now today with so many eyes and cameras watching, it's so much harder for a police officer to really go out there and just mess up. Right. Like, I'm not going to say that every single situation that happens within a police encounter, the police is never wrong for anything. Like humans are humans.
Yeah, they're people too.
They're people too. So we're gonna have that element, but I don't think the numbers are as egregious as what the media has been able to portray and kind of get out there. How do we cut through that? How do we put the media away and talk directly to the people, to the community, and say, we are more here for you than channel 8, 10, 13, wherever you go to get your information, wherever you go to get your content, wherever you go to find out what the hell happened, come to us and we can work with you in these type of situations like a Daniel Prude or a George Floyd situation where, I don't know how this police officer is going to get out of that situation. He's representing himself within a retrial. Speaking of George Floyd,
he's representing himself.
Yeah, he's representing himself in a retrial. Like,
you know what they say about that, right? When you represent yourself, you're gonna lose.
Yeah.
Right. But for a lot of those, for that situation, I do think the media and just a lot of the scrutiny of the situation kind of influenced that case. And I think if we're not careful as a people and we don't recognize that the media can in fact influence court cases, that kind of shifts the balance within which is supposed to be the fairest part within our country is the court system. So how can we eliminate that distraction so that it's more fair just for the overall citizen?
I think you have to. I'll tell you what I've done.
Billions of dollars.
No. I tell you what I've done. I don't even pay attention to the media.
No, there you go. Turn it off.
I just have broke free. And again, I said I'm 65 years old. When I was young, and you watched the news, Huntley Brinkley Report, Dan Rather, whether it was true or not, I believe that you're getting the news. No spin, no, whether it was conservative or liberal, it didn't matter. It just wasn't there. And now what you find is that you can turn your TV on, and if what you want is conservative news, you got conservative news. If you want liberal news, you got liberal news. If you want to spin on it, yes, the police are evil. There's a channel you can probably go to, and it's going to give you that type of news all day long. And so my feeling is, I don't need you to give me my news. I can go get my news how I want it, direct, straight, no spin, more factual than national news or local news. And what I found is that my peace of mind is so much better.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My peace of mind is so much better. It's like I'm not angry all the time. I'm not walking around, pissed at something. It's like my life doesn't need that garbage.
Oh, that means turn the TV off.
Right. Everyone needs to turn the TV off, except for if you're watching this. You touched on the Daniel Prude case. And have you seen that the RPD officer is facing disciplinary charges? Can you talk about that? What does that actually mean? Yeah, what does a disciplinary action process look like within RPD for the chief to come out and say he may not be liable for whatever damages or whatever in a court system, but within the Rochester Police Department, he's looking at disciplinary. What does that look like? What does that mean?
Well, first off, in the court system, they had a grand jury look at it from the state attorney general, or the grand jury determined there was no criminal liability. However, within Rochester Police Department, you have rules and regulations that you have to follow that are not impacted by the court system. So within the PD, they look at what occurred, they look at the policies and procedures, and they make a determination if something violated those policies and procedures. My understanding, and again, I'm not privy to the investigations that occurred. My understanding is that early on in the process, there was an internal investigation and the officers were cleared. So the fact that now we're rolling up to the 18th month, and deciding that we're going to bring those charges. One, it's for the officer, I'm sure it's a very bad circumstance. But the reality is the process, the civil service process is he'll be, does he want to plead to those charges, accept them and say, yes, I'm guilty? Or does he say, I'm not guilty? Now it goes to another process. And that other process is a hearing. You have an arbitrator come in, listen to the facts, and then he'll make a determination. He will submit those determinations to the chief. Chief can say, okay, I accept this determination. Or the chief can say, nope, I still disagree. And then it goes to another process. So it could be strung out for a year or two.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's going to occur is that as we roll into 2022, these issues will be resolved.
I hope so, because people lost their jobs from that whole situation. Like, my recommendation for the next mayor, whoever is our mayor, they don't throw anyone under the bus. And if you are the next police, if we get another police chief, or my recommendation would be to go to RTS and go up underneath the buses to see what they look like beforehand, so that you can be familiar.
They'd be safe because nobody's driving those buses.
No one's driving.
Oh. Dang. But didn't you work for the city school district?
I still work for the city school.
Oh, okay, what is your actual current job? We believe you're police chief at all times.
I'm the guardian of the universe.
That's right. Yeah, right.
What is it that you say you do around here?
You always got it. He's always doing something. Right?
I'm the director of safety and security for the city school district.
Oh, shoot.
Okay, so did that have anything to do with the SROs that the city decided to take out of the city school district?
It had nothing to do with it. I mean, they were part of the safety plan that the district had in place for 22 years. Then decision was made that they didn't want to have the SROs in schools. And so we're, obviously the school district officers, we have security officers, the burden of maintaining safety in those schools is now solely on them.
Yeah, that's a tough gig, man. Now, if our streets are bad, right? And a lot of these kids are between the ages of 14, 15, 16, 17. Are they they go to school? Some of them go to school. So how do you identify, or is it something that you can do? You can identify some of these kids that out in them streets, doing stuff they have no business. How can you kind of, communicate with the schools and, police department that these kids are in our schools as well? Is that a thing?
A thing. The reality of the circumstances is that, for anybody of school age that is in the city of Rochester, if they got beef in their neighborhood and they go to school, we're going to have beef in our schools. So we're cognizant of that. We take the steps to know who those players are. We take the steps to, obviously we have safety measures in terms of the equipment that we use to make sure, weapons don't get into school. We have the security officers that, try to prevent and intervene in events. We have social workers and other staff in the schools that are focused on, making safe school environments. And the reality is that, if you look at the history of what has occurred in the school district, we've been successful in keeping it safe. We know that with COVID, it's put us in a bad place because a lot of these kids have not had any discipline or structure for 18 months. And so now as they come into schools, it's important that we start to build structures so they get used to, yes, line up. This is the way we're going to do it, so that they get used to doing things in an orderly fashion.
Put your mask on, comply.
So
that's not the same.
Right.
I just had to throw a shot at COVID. I
you gotta bring up COVID one time.
Knowing that my kids are part of that school district, I do feel a whole lot better knowing that former police chief is in charge of the security detail so that is a win for the good guys. Thank you so much.
Shout out to RCSC for doing the right thing.
That's a good hire right there.
Let me give a shout out too, because we have like 150 security people that work for us, and they do a phenomenal job under very tough circumstances, and they've done a tough job long before Shepherd came into play. But we work hard, we train them good, we prepare them as best we can, we give them the support we can.
That's great.
Can I ask if you can are at liberty to say, what's the retention rate for some of those hands-on security officers that you've got working for you?
We have people that are career people. We have people that retired after 40 years. We've had people that have 20 years in the system. One of the things that make us more desirable is the fact that, the district has benefits. You get a pension, you get healthcare, you get the opportunity to 401(b) or whatever. So there's reasons to get that job and to stay with it. And yeah, we have people that we don't retain, and there's reason we may not retain somebody because they may not fit our system. It takes a very good individual to be able to deal with people who are telling you sometimes to go screw yourself.
Yeah, you're right. All day, every day. Yeah. So there's some changes coming into RPD. I want to get your views on what you believe, if these should be thrown out or they're for the greater good. All right, so this is gonna be like a spitball thing here. Spit hood.
Good. Start with that. You ain't running for nothing, man. Right. You good where you at. You can say what you want.
The spit hood. Should we get? I believe we've already talked about getting rid of that. Is that something that should have been gotten rid of?
The spit hood.
The spit hood.
The spit hood served its purpose, and I think that you find whether it's medical people or officers, the point was to keep people from spitting on you.
The people want to get rid of pepper balls, getting shot at them at these riots. Oh, I'm sorry, peaceful protests. Should we get rid of pepper balls that are getting shot from?
Pepper balls are a tool to address what I would consider to be violent protest. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a tool that prevents you from escalating to higher levels of force.
I agree. I should not be saying if I agree or not here.
Say it. Right. Future committee. You listen, you still are in the political realm.
Hey, they know how I feel about it.
You know, it's crazy.
They know how I feel about this stuff.
You're talking about, politicians. This dude right here be saying he be going off the cuff. They be calling, you're the only conspiracy theorist politician that we know.
You can't call them conspiracy theories anymore.
No, but that's what they call you.
They'll still call you that.
They'll
Austin,
still
what are
call
they
you
called?
that. They don't care.
Austin, what are they called? Movie. Dang it.
Theories.
No, when you give away a movie before it.
Oh, spoilers.
Movie
Oh,
spoiler.
you're spoiling? Oh,
Spoiler alert.
You're
Movie spoiler.
You're
All
movie
right.
spoiler.
Third one, they want to get rid of the CS gas canisters that they throw into the crowd to disperse.
They serve a purpose.
Man, for real.
3
Look,
for 3.
Yeah, for real. The third one, or I'm sorry, the fourth one here. I might throw another one after this one. We'll see. The noise emitting equipment, the LRADs.
They serve a purpose.
Right.
Let me say this too. I mean, when I say that they serve a purpose or whether they should have certain things,
Yep.
they're tools, and there's a reason they became tools, because before we had those tools, the tools you had were hands-on, and so as hands-on tactics caused people to get hurt, they caused officers to get hurt. You started to use things that you could keep distance, but still accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's dispersing a crowd or discouraging them from being violent. So to say we're going to take all your tools away, you're basically saying we don't want you to do the job, and that's fine because you're going to pay a price for that down the road.
Right. I said the same thing.
Yo,
I said because they were.
He's not with this. He's not with this cream puff policing that we.
No, I love it. Well, I told him. I said, look, I've been in a CS chamber. I had to go through a CS chamber and spend minutes in that freaking thing with no mask on. So you're gonna cry about a CS canister being thrown into your, and then you get to run out in the free world and have free air, wherever you run. That's crazy.
And here's another thing too that relative to protest. Everybody in a protest may not be violent or causing problems, but the fact that there are some that needs to be addressed,
right?
Because if you don't address it, they will continue to do what they do, even though you may have 1,000 people who are just, sitting there praying or whatever. They still have to be addressed.
But they should have been the ones that addressed them first before the police had to address them. And I was the only one in the entire freaking world, it seemed like, who was sitting there listening to the nonsense of city council. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me that they shouldn't have pepper balls if they're bum rushing the public safety building? What is it that you want them to do?
Yeah.
Nothing?
Your constituents are so whack.
It wasn't my constituents. I love my constituents. Don't talk about them. All right. It was not the Northwest.
See, he's got his pocket.
It was not the Northwest.
My bad. Wrong choice of words.
You better talk about the Southeast like that.
My bad. My bad. Wrong choice of words. That's
talk about Rachel's people.
That's
like
that's the whiskey.
I love Rachel.
But the other folks on your city council panel, like I was able to witness the the birth of the PBA board and how it PAB, whatever. So however way they kind of came about.
That was gonna be the next one I was gonna throw in there for you.
And this was before you was there too, man. Like they were all together on that. They all supported it. They all wanted it to create that public, the police accountability board. They all wanted it. And
75% of the city.
Well, I'm just talking about the folks on city council.
Oh yeah,
they
100% of it.
They all brought it in, and it was just funny. The argument was so one-sided. It was so one-sided. They brought in so many like white people that I never even was like. How many interactions? No, I'm just giving you my account from I used to do security for the city of Rochester. And I'm just a fly on a wall watching it, and I'm just saying, like, where are all these white people talking about how bad police are?
You know how many times white people I've had to listen to that we're talking about what we need to do for the black community?
Yeah, it's insane.
How is it that we can't find one black person to speak for them?
I'm like,
to be fair, what you need to do for the black community.
Yeah,
it makes no sense, man.
For real. I had a guy actually tell me that a statue.
I'll tell you what you need to do for the black community.
There you go. Tell me.
Save lives.
Save lives. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was just bizarre watching that whole thing go down, and I'm like, all right, if we're talking about systemic racism, all these things, then why isn't the council chambers filled with a whole bunch of black people? They only had like token black people come up there and talk about just one bad experience. But I'm like, why is people from the South Wedge speaking for folks on Dewey who
wait till they start talking about universal basic income and reparations. Wait till that comes around, because that's already in the middle of the conversation right now.
Yo, I can't even. I don't even want to go there. I didn't want to go there.
Well, it's coming. It's coming, and I am over freaking voted. I'm telling you, I can't even say nothing. I'll sit there and say they talk about they're going to directly put these funds into people of color's pockets, right?
I don't want it,
and I'm sitting there saying like. How do you think this is gonna
No, I'll just take yours. Like,
but it's not gonna help you in the long term. There's no way it's gonna help you in the long term.
You don't have no desire to do anything.
No one's ever gotten out of poverty from the hand of the government.
Where does this money come from? Who are they gonna get it from?
Where's Biden's? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. It's gonna cost the country nothing. Remember?
Oh,
Biden said it, his $3.5 trillion bill is not gonna cost the country anything because they're gonna tax the rich. That's what I started at the beginning.
Chief? Do you get like you're getting up there in age, right? Do you really? No, and I'm only doing this as This is all respect.
I'm right. It's got to turn into something.
No, listen. I come from y'all know. I come from a long list of elders. I got 103-year-old uncles and all that down. So I respect my elders. How are you able to keep your sanity and just knowing where your foundation and you worked your ass off to get to where you are today, and you're still working at 65? How do you like? Is that a trigger? Is it a trigger for you when you hear white folks talk to your community in a way as if they can't do something because of something that happened that they don't know about years ago?
I think that one of the things that stands out for me is that for a lot of the issues that we say impacts people of color, a lot of them are like blocks of cement on their shoulders. You know, that you can't succeed because of this, or things are against you. I think by putting those blocks on their shoulders, they don't try. And I think that the message needs to change. If we want people of color to be successful, we need to change the message to the things that you need to do to be successful. And, you know, we've talked about it before, or earlier we were talking about, you know, single parent households or fathers being responsible or getting your education. Those are the things that are going to help you be successful. Now, whether somebody gives you money to get over the hump, the fact of the matter is that doesn't get you out of poverty. Because if you think about it, there was a time where a loaf of bread cost a nickel. Now a loaf of bread costs $4. So that doesn't get you out of poverty by just necessarily having money. Right. You know, what gets you out of poverty is, you know, getting that education and preparing yourself to be successful in life. And if you're willing to accept just handouts, in the long run, what's going to happen is all you're going to be able to accomplish is the small things. Because there's always going to be this. You're always going to have somebody at the bottom. Remember that. There's always going to be people at the bottom because we're in a capitalist society. And so if you were to give everybody...
Amen.
Did you say the dirty word? He said
everybody, if you gave everybody $1,000 a week, the price of everything would just go up.
We did that, and Amazon got richer.
Everything's just going to go up. You know what I mean? The price of gas will go up. The price of bread will go up. The price of meat will go up.
Already has.
And so you'll have $1,000 in your hand every week, but it'll only be worth what was worth $50 2 years ago.
So, and why are they perpetuating the collective consciousness of the black man to just disregard that message? Like, for your vote. It's not even with the vote.
Like what Joe Biden said.
I've spoken to you know, black professors, and they were making an argument for communism. I'm like, dude, what black person you know is rich in a communist country other than Stephon Marbury?
He's probably got like $4.
Well, if you look at the most successful communist country in the world, which is China, they're capitalist.
But they're lying.
No, but they're capitalists. That's where all
their government is capitalist. Their government is capitalist. The people are not.
The people are not.
Right.
But you know, like I'm saying, just for black folks, if we always talk about how much we want to be great, and it's okay to have black pride, white pride, whatever pride you have in your culture. Wait, you can't say white pride and get away with it. I can say it for you. I'll say it for you.
Tell me how to fix my culture.
It is okay for a white person to be prideful of who they are, where they come. because every culture has a story. If you want to go back 1,000 years ago, you'll find a slave somewhere
soaking up all the white man's air,
right
in the Mediterranean.
but for today's Black, consciousness, the collective consciousness of Black folks, it's always this issue of, well, in order for us to go ahead, we have to solve what happened with slavery. We have to get over what happened with slavery. And I'm not saying that we should not learn from it, but it should not be a hindrance on what you do today. It really shouldn't.
We agree. And I think really Dan wants to speak on that as well. Just kidding. I'm kidding. Do not speak on that. Don't say anything about it. Well, I know you're a busy guy, and we've come to our end here. Chief Shepard, I appreciate you coming on and really just shining a light on.
I got one other point I want to ask about.
Go ahead.
Because you started on it and then you didn't get to finish because he wouldn't let you talk.
That's his job. That's his job on the podcast.
That happens a lot.
You started to touch that PAB question. And, I think what people don't realize is whatever organization you put in place to police the police, eventually they become the police.
Weird.
And then you're going to need somebody to watch them too.
Right. Exactly. So we're going to need what is it? An ABPAB.
Yeah.
An AB4PAB.
Another level of bureaucracy.
Yeah, another level for us to fund.
I wish we had more time, because I'm like, who are you going to put on that board? Like, how are you going to put someone on there that has no criminal experience or background and say, you know what, you didn't do a good job, police officer. You did too much.
Or not even have a police, like the entire time what I was fighting for was having one retired police officer. Just have at least one that has any kind of sense of what these men and women have to go through on an everyday basis to understand the mentality that they had that went into that arrest that you're saying went too far. Thank goodness we got that across. So I'm happy about that. But I appreciate
that's one win.
It's a tiny win, right? It's a tiny win. You gotta let it snowball like Mr. Buffett.
Freaking A.
But I appreciate his book.
Oh. I was thinking Jimmy.
I was too.
No,
Margaritaville. Right?
No. Good Lord. All right. Capitalist right here. I guess I'm the other one.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate the time very much. I appreciate all that you have done for this city, all that you continue to do, and all the truths that you spoke here tonight. And I believe that there are some people that were touched today by your words. So for that, I'm eternally grateful. Any people out there have any more comments, please let them put it down below. I'll make sure he'll make sure he gets
Chad said media is a steaming pile of progressive dog shit.
Damn, Chad.
Damn. Thank you, Chad. That is the
not
comment.
Not even an emoji.
We should definitely have a comment of the day for each show, because we having some great comments.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Was a good one. The comment of the day.
Chad gets the comment of the day.
Chad gets the comment of the day.
Use an emoji next time. Good Lord. Use a poop emoji at the end. So vulgar. We are a Christian station here.
They're going to take that out of context next to my face.
Yeah, right. I appreciate it so much. And if you ever get a chance to run across either Kanye West or John Leguizamo, let them know I'm trying to get a hold of them. I need them on the podcast. I need them on the show. I can't wait to have a conversation with them.
Or Nicki Minaj.
Or Nicki, man, you haven't worked on that yet?
I'm trying. I sent her email yesterday. Yeah.
Nicki Minaj don't email.
Nicki Minaj at yahoo.com.
I Googled her and it said Nicki Minaj email.
Good
so
Lord.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's try a little harder next time. Give me the phone number. I'll call it. Austin, hit that funky music.